Hoji seems to be quiet for quite a while already. And snarky ghost demon sitting quiet is never a good thing. Hey you, get out of my head.
Oh, hey, it's been a while since we last saw each other. What you've been up to?
Besides a little bit of this and that, trying to figure out what are you up to. What is this bag behind you?
Oh, it's nothing. Just my spare masks. Yes, spare masks.
If those are just masks, then you won't mind if I take a peek.
No, don't do it! I told you not to open this up. Now I have to gather all of those again.
It's no secret that there is this never-ending battle of arguments between people who like Starlight Glimmer and people who don't. And some of you may know, I personally belong to first group as she's my favorite character, and I gotta be honest, sometimes the other side bugs me. At times it feels like they hate her for the sake of hating her. So I've decided to make my video on a matter. However, I'll do things a little bit different. Instead of throwing my arguments why she's a good character, I'm gonna address some of the most common complaints people have about her and respond with my thoughts and how valid I think they are.
Great, this sounds like a fun. How about I get myself a popcorn while throwing arguments, starting with something from the episode that introduces her. Starlight being pony version of Amon from Legend of Korra.
Not gonna lie, this one actually is valid, but it's not exactly fair to say they are one and the same because their trait is taking special talent from others. You see, in case of Amon, we are talking about taking away ability that is still not very common and benders are still considered special in Avatar universe. By doing so, he was simply reducing them to be a normal human, which still are resourceful enough to invent machines, build cities and other stuff, all without bending. Also, he is a criminal mastermind who had this plan well thought out and did so to make sure nobody, even the Avatar, could stop him. With Starlight, things are a little different, as she is taking something that is a natural part of every pony, which is also fundamental to their civilization, as they need someone with specific special talent to do specific job. Without it, she basically could ruin the entire pony culture. And this plan was thought out, but it was mostly a product of her childhood, which I'll address later. Third main difference is Amon who tried to take over the world by storm, while Starlight wasn't thinking global. She wasn't walking on the street saying cutie marks are evil. She formed this village in the middle of nowhere to be a hidden sanctuary, so even if their ways are similar, it's not exactly fair to call them the same character.
But that's not the end. Some people also tend to compare her to Stalin and Hitler.
There is no need for me to address this as Silverquill already did this in his review, proving that her creation has more to do with cult rather than Marxism. I'll link this video below. And as for those who are already calling her a cult leader, they are not wrong.
You went easy on this one. So how about we move to more fun stuff since most complaints comes from season 5 finale. Starting with Starlight being Sunset Shimmer ripoff.
Something that is commonly used by people who also complain that she is not Sunset Shimmer, basically making the opposite argument. But I digress. Point is, I joke that Starlight was added to the show because we can't have Sunset in it. However, we are hardly talking about ripoff where both characters are pretty much completely different. Just look at them. Opposite colors, different main, cutie marks, and the difference doesn't even end here. Personality wise, they are also completely different. Sunset is a character who, when facing the problem, keeps analyzing and thinking about solutions. However, when odds are changing, she adjusts and thinks about another solution, best suited for the situation. However, she is tend to overthinking, but also is not afraid of asking someone for help. She is rather stoic and tries to keep her emotions under control. However, when she reaches that critical point, she is easily prone to outbursts. And she is also rather careful when approaching someone who is having some hard time, offering kind words and friendly advice. Starlight, on the other hand, is a type who usually goes with one detailed plan of approaching the problem. However, when things are not going as planned, she usually goes by rushed emotional reactions, and those tends to have mixed result. She quickly analyzes the situation and figures plan, but has the tendency to try not rely on others. Personality-wise, she's a straight mare who would rather offer tough love when someone is having hard time, as well as being passive-aggressive in an annoying situation. However, when things are going really bad, she's more prone to an emotional breakup as she's always trying to keep her emotions in check. Even as a villain, they're like day and night, since Sunset was just a generic school bully with generic goals of power with no substance to back it up. Pretty much her character back then was one giant plot hole. Starlight at least had a reason and motivation, as well as she was something different as a villain, since she wasn't aiming for world domination. Rather, she hoped to have her cult safe space in the middle of nowhere. Even if she was similar to Amon, it's still something more unique. Plus, she easily cornered the main six, something that Sunset was struggling with. So yeah, calling completely different character a ripoff is kinda not valid. Kinda very much not valid. In fact, it's a forced reason for me.
But hey, she is also compared to other characters too, like Moondancer.
Moondancer is overrated. I could make a whole video why with her temper tantrum.
Okay, suit yourself with your death wish. So how about you face something that is not a forced reason then, which is her backstory being bad and making no sense.
Okay, look, this backstory is not the best, true, but it's still better than what Sunset has, or rather what she has not, because all we got was short exposition of her being former student of Celestia that went rogue. That's it. Starlight at least have some backstory, even if not the best. However, it still works and makes sense when looking at what we got on her and Sunburst later in the series. Think about it, Starlight was a kid, their minds worked differently. Likely Sunburst was her only friend at that time, possibly because of her dad, maybe something else, but anyways. They were inseparable, but suddenly Sunburst got his cutie mark, and since his mother was always trying to be in control of his future, it's obvious she decided right away to send him to Celestia's school. Add the possibility of him being ashamed of not doing so good and ignoring all the letters from their hometown, no matter if it's from his mother or Starlight, and suddenly we have a little kid who was all alone with no friends right after said friend got his cutie mark. Things like this can be enough to traumatize child's mind, and if the impact was strong enough, it could twist her entire worldview even when she hits the adult age. She probably tried to write a letter, but when she met with no response, it only fueled her pain. Thus her child mind started producing ridiculous theories that for her make sense, and we all know that theory. She lost her friend because of cutie mark, and likely because of cutie marks and previous possible reasons of not having more friends, she didn't try to socialize with other kids, what she confirmed in the show that she was afraid of history repeat itself. It makes more sense for her than for Moondancer, who was an adult and had several friends already. But again, why Moondancer is overrated, it's a topic for another video.
Oh, here's some fun stuff. So many comments that she should be punished and go to jail or something.
Yeah, because hitting broken vase with a hammer is such a great way to fix it. 10 out of 10 solution. Jeez people, she's not some power-hungry villain, she's just a broken child. Her viewpoint was broken because of that bad experience in her childhood, and now she has been proven wrong, she's even more broken and she doesn't know what to believe in. Locking her in the dungeon will break her further. And why I know that? Because we saw an opposite spectrum of the same situation in the show. Remember Stygian? A pony who did something bad and was punished and cast away by pillars, and so he turned into Pony of Shadows? By the way, Starswirl, creating an ultimate evil? It's your fault. And there it is, the therapeutic effect of your only rightful punishment for her actions. Same situation, different effects. Now imagine how much more it would broke Starlight, who also is much more powerful than Stygian. Not to mention the whole destroying time. It was an accident pretty much. Because she lived in the middle of nowhere, Starlight didn't know about Nightmare Moon, Discord, Chrysalis, Sombra or Tyrek. For her, the main six were just random ponies, not national heroes who saved the world. Her plan was to torment Twilight by destroying her friendship in its core, not destroy timeline, just wasn't unaware of consequences. And Twilight wasn't helping in realizing that fact neither, as she was way too modest about it. She became a cult leader and later messed with the time because she was hurt by friendship. Knowing that, Twilight, who takes her title seriously, felt obligated to fix what friendship was broke. She knew prison is not a good place to reform a broken pony. The main six admitted they can't just let her go or anything because of how powerful she is. So, as a matter of fact, Twilight picked the best solution. Not only she fixed this vase with glue rather than hammer, she also had a better eye on her as her pupil, rather than if they would cast Starlight away or lock her in the dungeon.
This one is good. Her redemption was terrible. Sunset had a whole arc in Rainbow Rocks, while Starlight had only one song.
Yeah guys, wanna know a little secret? Okay, here it is. Season 6 still exists. Seriously. Okay, in terms of the episode featuring Starlight, it was lackluster and most of her progress happened off screen. but that's mostly writer's fault. But it's still the same what Rainbow Rocks was for Sunset. It has to be different. But let's forget about both for a moment and focus on the moment when they've turned good. Sunset, Rainbow MacGuffin, and boom, she turns good. One encouraging line from Twilight and boom, instant friend with Humane 5. That's all. With Starlight there was at least some active involvement. Twilight had to work her way to convince her to give up on what she was doing. It took effort, and it took some long conversation to convince others to give her a chance, and Starlight was ready to face the consequences of her actions, unlike Sunset, who was just sobbing. Now let's move on to their respective redemption arcs. I've heard two arguments to prove that Sunset wasn't fully accepted by Humane 5. Constant chance with the whole no offense thing, and what Arya pointed out, that they didn't invite her to the band. Argument 1, not quite valid, as they kept shunning Sunset in the next two movies as well, so the whole no offense is more of a lack of tact from them. Second argument, this one is rather tricky because it can be that or girls just playing safe, since it was pretty obvious that the rest of the school don't like Sunset, and inviting her to the band could cause some troubles to their social status. But other than those two, Sunset's redemption arc was really good, as it shows how is she struggling with her past mistakes. But it's still like something that Starlight had. Speaking of, Starlight's redemption arc was lackluster, as her progress happened off screen mostly, but few things were done right. For starters, she was also struggling with her past, but since only she, the main six, and Spike knows what happened, it's natural that she is also the very source of that, though others also helped out. Mostly Spike with bringing back her actions, only dropping the whole no offense thing. However, they were also all friendly and stuff because of what I told earlier. They are trying to be friendly in order to help her reform and recover her faith in friendship. But Starlight had one thing over Sunset. She was still prone to some of her old habits, mostly over-reliance of magic. This is something I have much problem with many reformed characters, that they instantly turn 180 and are completely new. It may be a kids show, but still, breaking up with old habits is not that simple. Besides that, the whole season 6 she was fighting with her fears caused by her past still being fresh in her mind, afraid of going certain ways will set her back on old track. Putting Sunset and Starlight's redemption arc next to each other is like comparing Call of Duty to Battlefield. Both are completely different. Sunset was a power-hungry villain who turned into demon and tried to conquer Equestria. Starlight was a cult leader who created a sanctuary for her broken worldview in the middle of nowhere. Though, personally I would still give slight edge to Starlight because of old habit not being gone. Slight because of not enough of her progress on screen.
Hey, I found your personal favorite. Look at every little thing she does. She learned nothing. She's as bad as she was because she mind controlled her friends.
Guess I'll have to repeat what I once said in my review of this episode. Okay, first of all, that wasn't mind control, that was more of a hypnosis. Second, do I need to bring you guys a list of Twilight screw-ups? You want to burn her for accidentally hypnotized 5 ponies, while Twilight did that to the whole town and she did that intentionally. But no, Starlight is a spawn of evil. Once again, she's lost, her world turned upside down again. She was in the process of learning things from scratch. On top of that, her past was also a giant factor, as there was still the fear at the back of her head that the history will repeat itself. And being overwhelmed and with things not going as she wanted, Starlight simply resolved to something she could always rely on. And here's a thing, her plan was to make the main 5 to be a bit more cooperative. However, full hypnosis wasn't the plan. And she simply was just oblivious and didn't exactly understand that her combination of spell was an overkill, because of her fears and her tendency to make rash moves when things aren't going as she would like. We once again go back to the whole fixing a broken vase by hitting it with a hammer. For you guys, it's a sign that she didn't learn anything at all and is still a terrible character. For me, it makes a believable redemption arc, as struggling with her past also bends her logical thinking, because the fear of history repeating itself if she won't succeed in her studies, and so Twilight will abandon her like Sunburst before. That she will be alone again, but this time not knowing what to believe in. If anything, this was a needed episode to flesh out her redemption, which is more genuine and more natural than some reformation spell, highlighting the fact that she struggles both with her past and old habits, as well as fixing her worldview. That's why it's actually one of the best of this season. It's just sad it's one of the few actually featuring her redemption.
Can you say the same about No Second Princess?
As for No Second Princess, it's not terrible, although I still have some gripe with the fact of her being paired with Worst Pony. But then again, it all boils down to her still reviewing her worldview, and the fact that Twilight forced her to make friends with some pony and had only one day for that didn't help as well, not to mention paranoia too. Trixie was no better, so if anything, Starlight was the best part of this episode, as she was victim of 2 ponies, while being in kind of a weakened state and tight situation.
I thought this one is too weak to actually throw at you, but given how you are reflecting every other shot, I have nothing else left. What are you gonna say about her being so strong she's capable to go on pair with Twilight and other alicorns?
You're right about it being weak, since I've already addressed the alicorn power level way back when I just got that awesome body of mine. But there are also 2 other explanations. First is rather simple, as Starlight was living in small town far from Canterlot and later in the middle of nowhere. Simply putting, if Starlight would be there along with Twilight, it could be her to be Celestia's personal student who later went saving the world. There is also another explanation, close to first. The unavoidable aspect of passing to next generations. If you hold a record at something or simply are best at something, one day someone new and younger will come and best you, and it will happen sooner or later. I think this is what she represents. We used to identify Twilight as the most powerful unicorn, but Starlight might be the one to whom this title might be passed, and it's shown in a subtle way than straight up saying she's Twilight's successor as most magical pony.
Well, I've tried, and you've pretty much reflected every shot at you, or almost every, but at least the biggest one.
Because people are short-sighted. It's once again the issue of Call of Duty and Battlefield community and their fight of which game is better, while each is good in their own category, as the only similar thing was a setup in Modern Combat. Same goes to Starlight and comparing her to Sunset. I joke that Starlight is a substitute, however she's not a ripoff, but her own character, with different backstory, motives as villain, and personality as protagonist. Same can be said about other gripes people have. They look on the surface and don't bother to look deeper. Think about possibility that there might be something more. By all means, I'm not saying she's flawless, however some of the supposed flaw people are still holding onto are pretty much outdated, especially after what we got so far in Season 8. By all means, if you hate Starlight, fine, whatever, but hate her for good reason. I doubt that I'll make her haters to change their mind and start liking her, but maybe at least I'll make them think about their reasons again.
So, are you now feeling better?
It feels good to take the weight of my thoughts about those common hates out of my chest. I feel much better.
Well, I actually doubt that.
Huh? Why?
You are on fire, literally.
I'll be right back. I'm all better now.
And I have several questions.